Okay, what's up, everybody? Okay, let's see. All right, we're a week away from the AP test. All right, and so we're gonna look today at the questions. There's two questions on it. All right, so fix and take a look at that. If you're not taking the test, I'll send you something separate. Okay, so you don't have to get bogged down into stuff that you're not going to have to be worried about. This is for the folks taking the test. Okay. If there's not, let me say this: everybody taking the test, there's nothing wrong with your expertise on AP government that can't be fixed with what's right in your expertise on AP government between now and the test. And that's true for my teaching as well. You know, we've hit the stuff, but we need to calibrate the last week. And let's just finish strong. You know, for everybody, let's finish strong. If you got it in you. Let's dig down deep and finish. You know, you always want to finish. And we want to use, what was it? I've been watching, I think I've said it a couple times, I've been watching Ozark. Ozark doesn't have a lot of great lines in it. It's kind of plot driven. But season 3, there was a line. I can't remember what was going on, but the guy said to somebody else, you got to use the pain and not let the pain use you. So it's been painful. It's been hard. You know, I don't know how it's been for you. It's been hard for me. Been hard for the McKenzie family. Ain't been no picnic. And I've heard people I admire say that we're supposed to be thankful for the hard times. And I always go, I don't know that I'm thankful for the hard times. But we can be thankful for what comes, for what we make of the hard times. But we got to make it, right? You know, the suffering's got to have a reason. We gotta. It's up to us to give it a reason, right? And so it's the ways that we grow, you know. And so if we don't grow, hey, the pain's using us just to beat us down and tell us we got nothing left, and you know we can't rise to the occasion. We rise to the occasion while we're using the pain to make us bigger than we would have been, make us better than we would have been. So let's see what we can do here. And you just putting one foot in front of the other, keep on trying, keeping on, let us not grow weary, doing good for the proper time. There'll be a harvest if we not give up. If we don't give up. All right, here we go. All right, let's take a look at what we got. I think it's right here. I'm hoping. Okay, so there's two questions. So this is last year's test. There's 4 questions, 4 free response questions on last year's test. On this year's test, there's only 2 of them. So this is the first type. So number 1 and number 4. And I'll send you this on the Google Classroom. So the questions we're looking at, the type questions that you're looking at is number 1 and number 4. So I'm just going to this first question right here, this is called a concept application question. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to use what you know about and you're going to apply it to some unfamiliar scenario. You're applying the concept in some other area. And, you know, that's what we do. Let's think about that. That is at once scary to us because we're not used. We like for every question to be something we're really, really familiar with. To read a couple of lines and say, oh, I know this. This is Abraham Lincoln Gettysburg Address. But it's going to be an unfamiliar topic to us, unfamiliar scenario. But what we're doing is we're applying what we know to it. Now, think about that. We do that every day. You know, we have done that every day this year when we've done Real Clear Politics, whatever the current events are, you know, we apply what's going on. You know, the folks not taking the test, coronavirus and federalism, there's all kinds of things to remind ourselves about federalism as we look at the coronavirus. the different states, you know, the limits on the national, what the national government can do, what the states can do, you know, the relationship, which governor's doing the best. That's training. Hey, you know, who is it that the Democrats now want to be president? You know, who do I want for I no longer want Biden. I want Cuomo. Why? He's the man who stepped up. You know, being governor of New York has been training. Remember the UTE. All right, so also as you look at this scenario here, we've never heard of anything called the Alliance Defending Freedom because they made it up. We've never heard of anything called the Johnson Amendment. I don't know if it exists or not. I don't know if it's made up or it's a little known. All right. But what they're going to do is they're going to ask us to use what we know and apply it to this scenario. Okay? And so that's fair. All right. So pause it for a second and read it. Read it and then read the questions. Okay? So pause it. Okay, I'm going to talk about it now. All right, so you got this group, Alliance Defending Freedom, Conservative Christian Group, Pulpit Freedom Sunday. They're going to challenge a provision of law called the Johnson Amendment, prohibits political activity concerning religious organizations, doesn't restrict them from talking about issues, but it prohibits them from giving money to political campaigns or speaking in favor of candidates. Okay. All right. So we know this stuff. So on Pulpit Freedom Sunday, and as an act of civil disobedience, pastors and religious leaders preach openly about the moral qualification of candidates seeking office. Okay. So it's a neat little scenario, you know, not an unfamiliar type of scenario to us. All right. Now let's look at the three parts. The question itself is like a short answer. I mean, it's a short answer question from last year. You get 15 minutes, so it's 5 minutes per question, 5 minutes per letter. And look at the verbs on them. Before we start thinking about what your actual answer is, look at the verbs. Describe an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group and scenario. A couple of guys that I'm going to send you, the two teachers. Describe means a couple of sentences. You know, these are not long answers. Describe, so I mean, you can do more than that. So I mean, I do 3 paragraphs, but 2 sentence, you know, minimum. All right, describe an action Congress would take to address concerns of the interest group scenario. All right, in the context scenario, B, explain. Explain, you know, that you're going to have explain. You're going to have the word because in there. You're going to have the word as a result of why, something like that. You know, it's going to have more sentences, 3 or 4 sentences. All right, explain. All right, I've looked at 3 or 4 videos on this, and again, I'm not quite ready for you to stop it and answer the question. But in a minute, I'm going to get you to do that. All right. Several of the videos say, hey, complete sentences. To make sure you get credit, complete sentences with the question stem in your answer. So your answer is going to say an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group in the scenario. And you know what? I might even go so far as to get specific. The concerns of the Alliance Defending Freedom, all right, would be. And then you give your answer, you know, in a sentence or 2. All right? B, use the question stem in your answer. In the context of the scenario, partisan divisions could prevent action described in Part A by, and then 2 or 3 sentences, you know. And then C. All right, same deal. Use the question stem. The Alliance Defending Freedom might argue that their constitutional rights are threatened by the Johnson Amendment because, okay, and then you put your, you know, your constitutional argument in there, okay? So there's no thesis in this. They just want to make sure that you're. It doesn't. I heard somebody say in one of these things, this doesn't make you a better writer, but it makes you a clearer thinker. And so what you want to do is make sure you're answering the questions. You know, I wouldn't say anything about President Trump. I wouldn't say anything about some current event that's related to this that you're thinking about. You know, you're going to stay within their scenario to show that you understand how the government works. Okay? So pause a second. Answer it. 5 minutes a pop. And hey, and you know, 3 columns. You know, or you do your answer, then I'm going to give my answer, and then you know I'm going to give you a couple other guys. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, here's my answer to letter A. An action Congress could take to address the concerns of the alliance defending freedom would be to pass a law ending the Johnson Amendment. This law would then allow political activity by nonprofit organizations like religious organizations. That way, the Alliance Defending Freedom could speak out. Sorry about that. Could speak out in favor of particular political candidates. All right? So you're just answering the question. You know, nothing, you know, and you can almost, notice that you can almost answer the question. I mean, you got to know that Congress passes laws. That's all you got to do. All right? And you know, if you know Congress passes laws, you know, you don't need any special knowledge. So what we want to do is we want to give a real deep answer. We're not searching for deep answers here. None of this stuff is deep. We're not trying to make ourselves better human beings or prove to whoever's reading our essay that we're deep and insightful human beings. Insight from inside. Answer the freaking question. All right. Okay. Here's my answer for part B. In the context of the scenario, partisan divisions could prevent a Congress from passing a law because of the different positions on political parties concerning religious freedom. Democrats are more supportive of separation of church and state. And if Democrats were a majority in either house of Congress or both houses of Congress, it would be very difficult for Republicans who are more supportive of religious freedom, religious liberty, who kind of don't see as much of a separation of church and state, to pass a law ending the Johnson Amendment. Also, you might give another example. Also, perhaps there was a Republican majority Congress, but a Democratic president. The Democratic president might veto the bill passed by Congress ending the Johnson Amendment, repealing the Johnson Amendment. Okay? So, you know, political divisions. We know what the parties stand for, duh. And so, you know, how come, conservative Christians want more religious liberty? Well, they want to pass a law. They want Congress to do it for them. They want to pass a law. Well, why wouldn't the law pass? Because Democrats. Democrats have a majority of either house. There's a Democratic president. And the Republicans don't have a 2/3 veto-proof majority of either house. Okay? All right. And I mean, now I've expanded on it a little bit, but my answer, let's give a 3-sentence answer. In the context of the scenario, Democrats who believe in a strict separation of church and state could prevent Congress from passing a law ending the Johnson Amendment. Republicans in Congress would be in favor of this law, but Democrats in Congress would be against this law. That's 2 sentences. If Democrats had a majority in either house of Congress, since a law has to pass both houses of Congress, the Johnson Amendment would not be ended. Period. So that's 3 sentences. Okay? So you're just showing that you can clearly and thoroughly answer the question. No insight. I didn't say anything that was deep. I didn't imply that either side, we're not implying that either side's right or wrong. Schmite, schmong. We ain't worried about that. We're just trying to answer the question. Okay, letter C. The Alliance Defending Freedom might argue that their constitutional rights are threatened by the Johnson Amendment because they are strong supporters of the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. The Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment says somebody can do anything in church. Well, let's get specific. That Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. This means that Congress can do anything that inside church that's legal outside church. Well, it's legal outside church to contribute to a candidate, to speak out on behalf of a candidate. Why wouldn't it be legal to speak out on behalf of a candidate inside church? Now, you don't. All right, so there's my answer. All right, now you don't have to get that specific. You can say the Alliance Defending Freedom might argue their constitutional rights are being threatened by the Johnson Amendment because it prohibits their freedom of speech. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech. If the Alliance Defending Freedom can't speak out in favor of political candidates, their free speech rights are being violated. All right? So that's not even so deep. You don't even need the expertise to say that you understand what the Free Exercise Clause is. All right? You could do it. Also, you could say the Alliance Defending Freedom might argue their constitutional rights are being threatened by the Johnson Amendment because the First Amendment protects freedom of religion. The Alliance Defending Freedom would argue that their freedom of religion is being taken away, being violated by the Johnson Amendment because it does not allow them to express their religious convictions in political matters. All right? So again, notice that all these answers are thorough, they're concise, they're in complete sentences. And let's see. They want us to do something called closing the loop. So at the end of your sentence, you would then say, this is why the Alliance Defending Freedom would argue their constitutional rights are being threatened. And it feels terribly redundant, terribly redundant. But nobody can say that you didn't answer the question. It's like one of those English assignments. I used to get these English assignments in, maybe about 6th or 7th grade, and the question just said answer it in complete sentences. It didn't matter if the answer was good. Didn't matter if it was thoughtful. It mattered that it was in a complete sentence and it's thorough and that it covered every part of the question. So that's what you're doing here. Okay, so the format of it is, let's say two things about this format of this question. Number one, it's thorough. If you should spend all your time showing off, you don't want to bring Wisconsin versus Yoder. You don't want to say, hey, my teacher thinks the Amish got a break in Wisconsin versus Yoder. That's not what's going on here. Don't show off all your expertise or your intellectual dexterity. None of that. I like to do that. I like to challenge you to do that, but that's not what we're doing here. This is a test. It is only a test. We are only going to answer what is asked on the question in the test. In 15 minutes, there's not time to make a big, long, insightful argument. All right. So you're going to give a concise, thorough answer, and it's easy. It's easy. None of the stuff I just said requires you to do any more studying. You've got the information you need to answer that question. You got it. All right, you just got to answer it. So you got to have it in your mind. You got to say, okay, I can handle this. It may not be a slow ball over the plate, but it ain't a fast ball and it ain't a curve ball. It ain't coming in no faster than that 72 miles an hour. And all you got to do is hit a single, hit a fair ball. All right, and like with the short answer questions last year, you know, you don't want to get carried away with A, B, or C. You know, you get a point for A, a point for B, and a point for C. Okay, the other thing to say about it, the videos I've been watching, the consensus seems to be, don't put A, B, and C. Separate the answers off. You can write A, B, and C, but then erase them. You know, then, you know, on the, now of course you're not writing, so delete the A, you know, on there. So, because if you do that, that allows anything you say in C to also apply to the question. You know, so if they're sitting, you know, they're, you know, the graders are always going, does what they, this is okay, but does it meet the threshold of a point? Do they get a point? You know, is it good enough to get a point? Well, maybe not quite, but if something you said in B shows that you know, does what they wanted you to do in A, we get that point for A too. All right, so separate the answers off. Don't A, B, and C them. Okay? All right, that's what I'm getting from the videos I'm watching. I'll send you a couple. Okay, here we go. So, I mean, your confidence ought to be growing. As I'm talking about, I mean, I always go through a process. As I'm looking at sample questions, step 1, read it. Feeling pretty confident. Step 2, panic. Oh, I'm a failure. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a terrible teacher. Why on earth did Calhoun High School and these kids' parents entrust me with their kids' future? Right? I mean, it's always that freak out step. You have to go through that I have to go through the freak out step. Then I start answering the question and thinking about it. You know, mess up a couple of times, you know, but then get my thinking straight. And then the end result is you go, shoot, I know how to do this crap. This ain't nothing. You know, hey, Mr. AP question. Mr. AP, folks, hey, Mr. AP grader, you don't want none of me? You don't know me. Let me tell you how much I know. All right, and then you're ready to roll. All right, so the confidence, but I mean, every single year, every single test, I have to go through the freak out process. Have to deal with my insecure demons. All right, but those demons, whatever they are, hey, they're always in the car with us. They're going to get their say, but they don't get their way. They're always in the car with us. Springsteen says we don't let them drive. You know. Okay, here we go. Not that one. Not that one. These court cases were fun. I'm kind of sad about that. That's fun. All right, number 4. All right, so here's the, you know, what's it called? Oh, they've got a name for it. I don't know. You get 25 minutes on this one. This is the one that needs a thesis. All right, and this is the one where you're using, you know, the essential documents. All right, so same deal. Now I'm going to read it. I'm going to say everything about it. And then I'll give you a second to, and, you know, what they're saying is 3 paragraphs. All right, and hey, let's look down here. Remember we talked about this, and we said this is an X statement. This is like the X statement from last year. Nope, no X statement. All right, you got 25 minutes. That's not time to write something with an X statement on it. So it's basically, and look at before we look at the question, let's look at the requirements. All right, you got to have a thesis. A and B, therefore X, or X because of A and B. You know, you can put the thesis first, and you can say, here's the 2 reasons for this thesis, or you can say because of A and B, you know, your thesis. All right, no X statement. So you're going to have a thesis, you're going to make a claim, and then 2 pieces of evidence, 2 main points defending your thesis. No X statement, all right? So, hey, compared to what we've dealt with, slow ball over the plate. But it's last year, so let's just kind of remind ourselves. That stuff's in us. Okay, now let's look at what we got right here. Constitution has established a federal system of government. Under federalism, policy making is shared between national and state governments. Over time, the powers of the national government have increased relative to those of the state governments. Develop an argument about whether the expanding powers of the national government benefits or hinders policy making. All right, use at least one piece of evidence from one of the following foundational documents. All right, okay. So you can use the Articles of Confederation, you can use Brutus, you can use Federalist 10. All right. Okay, look at what you got to do. You got to have a thesis. You got to have two pieces of evidence. Look at the evidence. One piece of evidence has got to come from one of these. All right. And the second piece of evidence can come from one of these or from any other foundational document. Okay? All right. Now, one of the videos says, now in both cases, do your little pre-write. Now, it's got to be quick. You're going to take maybe 3 minutes for your pre-write here. All right. But pause it for a second. Decide what your answer is. And then I'm going to go with it. Okay. Let's see. I think I'm going to try to go both ways on this one. Let's try to go both ways. All right. I'm going to try to talk my way into an answer arguing both sides on this one, but I'm going to start with the easy one. All right. So my answer is going to say the expanded powers of the national government benefit policy making for two reasons. Benefit policy making by allowing the national government to overcome opposition to the making of good policy. The making of policy. All right, for two reasons. First, the national government's expanded powers to tax will allow the national government to pay for the policies that it needs to make. That will benefit policy making. Second, the expanded powers, the necessary and proper clause allows the national government to pass laws to do things that are not specifically listed as an enumerated power of the Constitution. All right, so there's my introductory essay. All right, for my second paragraph, I'm going to say, the Articles of Confederation did not give the government the power to tax. For this reason, it was very difficult for the government to make policies that would benefit the country. All right, the government couldn't pay for anything if it didn't have the power to tax. The Constitution gives the government the power to tax. Therefore, since the writing of the Constitution, the government has been able to pay for the policies that is enacted. All right, so hey, boom, there's two pieces of evidence. All right, or two foundational documents. All right, second piece of evidence. The elastic clause in the Constitution allows, and notice I'm just going to repeat the first sentence. In my first sentence, I'm just going to repeat the main point that I made. The elastic clause in the Constitution allows the government to do things that are not specific beyond just what is specifically enumerated in the Constitution. The elastic clause gives the government power to do anything that's necessary and proper for carrying out its foregoing powers. In Brutus 1, the author argued that the elastic clause would make the government much more powerful and would make it more able to pass lots and lots of different policies, and that the states wouldn't be able to stop the national government from enacting lots of policies. Therefore, policy making is benefited by the increased powers of the national government because of the elastic clause. Now, if you want to give some examples, the interstates, Obamacare, the New Deal, all those have been enacted because of the elastic clause. You can do that, for example. Okay, but boom, I've answered the question. All right. Okay, hey, let's go the other way on this one. Let's see. The answer is going to be the expanded powers of the national government have hindered policy making because state governments are better situated to enact effective policy that will help people that live in their states. All right. Let's see. Anti-federalists. Let's see. Let's go with Federalist. Yeah, Federalist 10. All right. In Federalist 10, Madison argued that a bigger government was a better government, that a bigger government would be a more effective government. But he acknowledged that all political theorists up till that time had believed that smaller governments were more effective governments. In Brutus 1, the author argued that state governments would not be as remote as the national government and would better understand what the people in those states needed. All right. Therefore, smaller state governments that are closer to the people that live in those states can more effectively address the concerns of those states. But because the national government has used and again, we can throw the Constitution in there, the elastic clause to expand the powers of the state vis-a-vis the powers of the national government, vis-a-vis the powers of the states have been weakened, and that's bad for policy making. All right, in Brutus 1, we can do all three of them, all three of those. In Brutus 1, the author points out that Montesquieu believed that smaller governments, smaller republics would be more effective because the leaders would be closer to the people. Smaller governments are more likely to prevent tyranny. Smaller governments are closer to the people, so smaller governments will be better able to enact policies that the people need enacted. All right, the Articles of Confederation, by protecting the powers of state governments, were designed to make sure that state governments carried out the laws, that state governments enacted the laws that were most directly beneficial to the people in their states. All right. So, you can use any of those. You can use all three of those. Always, you can use, I would definitely always use the Constitution. If you wanted to go back to that first, if you want, you could add Federalist 51 in there. But that's kind of responding to a refutation. But you could add Federalist 51 and say Federalist 51 notes that the checks and balances will prevent the national government from becoming tyrannical. And also notes that since men are not angels, we need strong national government. And you can throw some history of Shays' Rebellion in there. But notice now, just keep answering the question and then close the loop at, let's see, at the end of both of these arguments, my last sentence of each paragraph needs to be, this shows that the expanded power of the national government benefits policymaking. Or they call it closing the loop. To go back, once you've made your argument, provided your evidence, to go back. I'm using my finger to go back. Let's see. So I got my evidence right here. I'm using my finger to go back to the question. So after I've used Brutus, and the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation, I'm going to say this shows that the expanded powers of the national government benefits policymaking, or this shows why the expanded powers of the national government hinders policymaking. Okay. All right. So it's just a matter of calibration, I believe. You know, you just want to get yourself. And so, I mean, I'll try to send you stuff, some other maybe practice questions. You know, I think that, and be looking up practice questions. Be doing some research on your own. But you just want to answer the questions in complete sentences. Follow the directions to a T. Do a short pre-write. Include the question stem in your answer. Make sure they're in complete sentences. All right. Reasoning. You know, so when you use reasoning, you're going to say, but you're going to use the word because. This shows why. Okay. All right. I don't think I did quite as good a job with that one as the first one. I've really been thinking a lot about the first one. So I'll be thinking some more about that one. All right. I wonder how much I bet I took 20 minutes. What do y'all think?